This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. As we look ahead to the first night of Chanukah tomorrow night, I want to prepare us with two questions. First question, where do you place your Chanukah? In a window. You place it in a window. Second question is harder. What act constitutes the actual mitzvah of the candles? What is the act that actually fulfills the mitzvah? Say it nice and loud. Lighting the candles, what? Publicizing the miracle, or what? I'm sorry? Persumanes, publicizing the miracle. So there's an interesting debate in the Talmud, in Masechet Shabbat, debating the mitzvah of Chanukah, whether the mitzvah is fulfilled by placing the menorah, the Chanukiah, in a particular place, or by lighting the Chanukiah. Whether it's hanacha, lahaniach, to place, or hadlaka, like lahadlik, to light. In other words, is the mitzvah of Chanukah to light the Chanukiah, irrespective of where it's placed? So wherever you put it, as long as you light it, you fulfilled the mitzvah. Or is it about placing the Chanukiah in a very specific place, so that if it's not in that place, then you really haven't performed the mitzvah? Well, what is at issue here really gets to the essence of the message of these candles. Because if the goal is, as Janet and Rabbi Litsky said, if it is persumanes, if it's about publicizing the miracle, then where it is placed is essential. If you light the candles, but you don't share the miracle, then perhaps you haven't really fulfilled the mitzvah. On the other hand, perhaps the mitzvah of where it's placed, that's just really secondary, and it's about lighting. In that case, the essence of the mitzvah is to reenact the story of the Maccabees and to celebrate how they brought light to a time of darkness. I'll let you ponder this debate. Is it hanacha, placing, or hadlaka, lighting? You can tell me your thoughts during the Kiddush. For now, let's just say, suffice it to say that placing it, where you place it, matters a lot. And I would say this year, it matters even more than usual. The Talmud says that the Chanukiah, as you correctly said, should be placed in the window, or perhaps even better, it says at the front stoop, so that it is visible to all passers-by. But the Gemara qualifies this statement saying, at a time of danger, it's enough just to put the Chanukiah on your table. Ubesha'at hasakana, maniach al shuchano v'dayo, and that's enough. So what does the Talmud mean when it says that at a time of danger, you don't have to put it in the window, just put it on your table? Commentaries say that these Babylonian rabbis were referring to a time when Zoroastrian priests prohibited lighting fires anywhere outside of their temples, and they would actually report people who were violating that decree. Later codes affirm that times of dangers are those times when it was forbidden to celebrate Hanukkah. But we might understand the term just more broadly. In a time of anti-Semitism, when lighting a menorah might draw unwanted attention to your home as a Jewish home, you're given permission to light inside. Put it on your table where only you see it. So once again, I'll ask you, Dafka, this year, where are you going to light? Facing the street or inside with the curtains closed? I imagine that you followed stories and statistics about the rise of anti-Semitism. Even before Kanye West and Kyrie Irving, anti-Semitism was on the rise, and their tweets and their statements have spread further lies and hatreds and misunderstandings to tens of millions. So it might be understandable if you were feeling uncomfortable and wanted to light inside. But I want to tell you that I'm going to put mine in the window. I'm not naive, of course, but I also don't want to blow what is happening out of proportion. There's danger, and it can be real and scary. But the Jewish community, together with local authorities, has established a strong security network. We're also not alone. We have allies standing with us. I got a call this past week from Andrew. I'm not sure how Andrew got my phone number. I've never met him. In fact, he's only met one Jew ever before. But he called to wish us a happy holidays, and to invite me to his senior home to tell him and his fellow residents about Hanukkah and about being Jewish. He explained that he's Episcopalian and that he believes that the best way to counter anti-Semitism is to learn about Jews, and so he was reaching out. It was wonderful to receive Andrew's call. And it was heartening this week as well to learn about the Council of Centers of Jewish Christian Relations, which is calling on churches across the U.S. to confront anti-Semitism. Their statement expressed concern about the normalization of anti-Semitism in American discourse. And it calls on churches to redouble their efforts to denounce anti-Semitism publicly as antithetical to the very essence of Christianity. They did so while acknowledging the roots of modern anti-Semitism, which go back to conspiracy theories of Christian libels against Jews. The statement concludes, "We entreat the churches to look inward by examining their preaching, teaching, and theologies to eliminate any trace of anti-Jewish sentiments, and look outward to act and speak against all forms of anti-Semitism they encounter. We ask Christians to reach out to their Jewish neighbors in solidarity and friendship, and to follow the scriptural admonitions from Psalms and from the book of Peter. Let them shun evil and do good. Let them seek amity and pursue it." So I'll be putting my Chanukah in my window because I think that the majority of our Minnesota neighbors, they uphold these values, and because I think that our light is needed now more than ever. That was the message of a very unusual TV commercial that appeared a few Sundays ago during NFL games in the monitors and airports across the US. The ad was placed, strangely, by the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. You might have heard me or Cantor Abrams refer to the IJS, a place where we've studied. They run programs teaching mindful Jewish practice. So the ad began with pictures of people who appeared very stressed out at work, people who were distracted by social media, people who were feeling isolated and alone. What followed were pictures of Shabbat candles, of Torah, of friends, with a message that said, discover a tradition with over 3,000 years of wisdom to help you be calmer, more mindful, more connected. Now, put aside whether Jews should proselytize or whether this was the right ad to place during an NFL game. Put aside the question of the cost of advertising on the NFL, because this was a free public service announcement. But instead, listen to the rationale for the spot. In a follow-up email, the IJS wrote, "Perhaps our effort to combat anti-Semitism would be more effective if they involved not only educating people about the pain and horror of anti-Semitism, but also the wisdom, joy, and vitality of Judaism. As we witness a proliferation of anti-Semitic statements from politicians, entertainers, and athletes, our responses," they said, "must include not just denunciations, but also articulations of what makes our tradition beautiful and powerful, and invitations to come and learn." To borrow the language of the NFL, they concluded, "We can't win by just playing defense. We have to play offense, too. Let's show the world what Jewish life can be all about." In other words, we need to share our light, not necessarily to convert people, though that would be wonderful, rather to share what we find meaningful beautiful, powerful in Jewish living, because in the process we dispel myths, explain differences, humanize our people. It's the reason why we welcome school groups and churches here on Shabbat, and why in those times it's important for all of us to go up and greet them and welcome them. It's the reason why our clergy go and teach at Benilde St. Margaret across the street. It's the reason why I always speak to our B'nai Mitzvah students about being Jewish ambassadors among their friends. Now, I don't have all the answers to combating anti-Semitism. There's plenty of organizations that are working on that very task, from protection to education. But each of us has a role, and it has to begin with us being knowledgeable and committed and proud Jews. You get that. You're here on a Shabbos when we don't have a bar bat mitzvah. You understand that the first step to responding is to know what we are fighting for and defending. Remember, the Maccabees were not fighting for their lives. That's the story of Purim. They were fighting for their faith. They were fighting for Judaism, to be able to practice, to observe, to keep it, as they felt commanded and compelled to do. A few years back, Deborah Lipstadt spoke directly to this in the conclusion of her book, Antisemitism, Here and Now. After a dozen chapters defining and describing the varieties of anti-Semitism and how best to respond to them, she wrote, "Anti-Semitism is not the greatest threat facing Jews today. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't spend my time teaching and writing about this subject if I didn't think that it posed a threat today. But if anti-Semitism becomes the sole focus of our concerns, we run the risk of seeing the entire Jewish experience through the eyes of the people who hate us. Focusing only on what has been lost negates the centuries of extraordinary economic, intellectual, and communal achievements. It allows the oi, rather than the joy, to become the prism through which we view the Jewish past." In that vein, let me conclude by returning to this issue of Hanukkah, where we place the Chanukah. If we say that the mitzvah is Pirsum Hanes, it is about spreading the light, and if in a time of danger we don't place it outside, well then why do we bother to light it? Perhaps we haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. Why does the Talmud say we should place it on our table instead? In that case, perhaps, we're lighting for ourselves. We are the ones who need the light. We need to light to remember the joys and not just the ois. We need the light to absorb the light of Torah and of mitzvot. We need the light of the Maccabees, the light of history and of hope, to strengthen our spiritual resolve, that we might walk proud as Jews in the world, and that in turn we might share our light with others. As we sing, "Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." Shabbat Shalom. MTO. Continue with Musaf, Amud 155, page 150.